Support for Radio Friends comes from OsteoStrong. Improvements in bone density, strength, and power can be achieved by weekly 5-minute no-sweat sessions on their 4-Spectrum machines. These isometric robotic machines safely emulate high-impact loading on different parts of the skeletal system, which stimulates activity in bone-building cells. Balance and agility can be improved by 2-minute sessions on vibration plates. Every session is supervised by a trained coach. Learn more on Facebook or call to set up a complimentary wellness assessment and session. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on New Year's Eve, December the 31st, 2020, and what a year this has been. It has been a tradition on Radio Friends every year on New Year's Eve. We had the one and only Hank Waters on this program. And Hank would talk about what happened throughout the year and give his words of wisdom, and I always look forward to that. And when Hank passed away earlier this year, I was saddened, and really saddened by that. And then I started thinking, who are we going to have on New Year's Eve that can fill the shoes of Hank Waters? And the first person that popped into my head was my friend CATHY Salter. And you were a very close friend of Hank and Vicky.
I loved Hank. And it has been really tough this year to not have him with us because he just always was. And he, the whole time I knew him, I would read his columns and just think, he's just who else could do that?
Yes.
He has done this for decades and decades.
He wrote thousands and thousands of columns.
Sometimes he'd make a blooper or something, and then the next day he'd say, whoops, at the end, and he'd correct it.
He was the eternal optimist also.
He was.
No matter how bad things would seem, Hank would always, I'd say, oh, Hank, my God, this is awful. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. It'll correct itself. It'll be okay. Yeah. And I remember always telling him with the Tribune, I said I'd get the Tribune, and the first thing I'd go to was Hank's column and the obituaries.
And if you weren't there, you thought, this is going to be a good day.
And he'd go, well, who do you look at first? I said, Hank, I look at the obituary first, then I come to your column.
Well, I still think of us as youngsters. Hank was 90 when he passed. And we had gotten together with Hank and some other local journalists every 5 weeks or so just to have a glass of wine and to whine about what was going on in the world and to try to fix things. And he was always he was always at the center of it all. We called ourselves the Algonquin Midwest.
Right.
And so we miss him for his intelligence and his wisdom. And, he would say, this will pass.
Yes, he would always say that.
Yes. And what a year it's been. But I think about him when I go out early in the morning and walk, and the sky is filled with stars. And I think about what we've been through this year with COVID and how we're isolated. We self-quarantine ourselves. We self-isolate ourselves at home. We've gotten used to wearing masks. Some of us even put a shield on, if we go to the grocery store. But we've learned how to do that. We're working on it. We've gotten through some horrible things this year. And I miss not being able to say goodbye to those folks we've lost.
Exactly.
Like
and we
Hank
have. You and I have lost some very
Laura
good
Perez
friends.
Mesa
and good friends this year.
Petch Peden, lots of people. And we don't go to funerals anymore.
No.
My son lost his father-in-law in Spain, and it was just, they couldn't have a funeral. And it's very hard.
The first thing I thought of when I learned that Hank had passed away, I was very sad, but then I started laughing, and I said, you know what? Hank Waters and Irene Haskins are back together again, and she can needle him about being so cheap.
And Libby's up there, too.
And Libby
They're
Gill
all looking down on us, saying, this too will pass.
Yeah. So when you look back at this year, Kathy, obviously the most important thing is COVID. How do you relate to this?
Well, COVID became a challenge for a group of women I've talked about before who, helped put together something called the Common Ingredient. And one of the things that I think is a positive that's come out of this year is that people are trying to help each other. People realize there's food insecurity in the community and restaurants have closed and need support. Lots of people need support. So I'm very pleased that this week in the Tribune on the front page, or a couple of weeks ago on the front page, there was a feature article on the Common Ingredient as a recipe for helping people, food. Mm-hmm. I think about Sam Sifton, who's the editor of the New York Times food page, how much of what he does in that column now talks about helping people, cooking, sitting down at the table together. Families that really didn't take time to do that before.
Now they are.
They are doing that. They're cooking recipes that...
So maybe something good came out of all of the bad.
I think so. I think that is a good thing. We all know that we need less.
Yeah.
I mean, don't we wear sweatpants at home or our pajamas sometimes?
We can get that's right. We can get along.
We can go into our closets and take out 3/4 of what's in the closet and donate it to Upscale Resale or some organization that helps people who need clothes. We just don't need as much. Right. And we've not only had to navigate COVID, but the politics this year
been a year, hasn't it?
It has been a year of turmoil.
I would ask Hank if he were here right now, how would you describe what has happened this year in politics? And you came in and you pulled up one of his columns.
Because I am a librarian at heart, so I don't throw things.
We're almost out of time here,
okay,
Kathy.
So here was a line. I had a Hank Waters editorial. So this is Hank speaking, February 1st, 2017. It has only been 10 days since President Donald Trump's inauguration. Measured by the amount of angst he has fostered, it seems like a lifetime. So I think now he would be saying, well, we have lived through a lifetime in the last 3 years, but we've been through protests this year, we've been through primaries, we've been through debates with masks on, that whole issue, and we just had an election that was challenged
and
again and again and again, and democracy, and we had the Electoral College verified it. So
exactly.
You know what Hank would be saying.
And for
we've gotten through that.
For that, we can be very thankful. It's so easy to get emotional. It's so easy to get emotional. But thank you for coming and spending New Year's Eve with us. I wish you and Kit and all of our listeners and viewers a Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.